Today, we become legends.
Hey, my name's Inter, and welcome back to the channel for an OB3 tier list for Smite 2. This is going to be taking into account the changes that are going to be coming in OB3, as well as Achilles and Rama. But especially with Achilles and Rama, take these opinions with a grain of salt, because we haven't even really played with them yet. This is just based on, how I think they look with their plus ones and how I think they're going to fit into the meta. I could be totally wrong on Achilles and Rama, maybe a couple of the changes that are coming, because we really haven't had time to playtest with them yet. But OB3 is going to be coming really soon, so I thought instead of making an OB2 tier list, let's just make one for OB3 with predictions on what I think is going to be strong. So first up we have Achilles, and I think Achilles is going to be at least A tier. I don't think I'll put him in S tier just yet. I don't think he's going to be, necessarily completely breaking the game, but I think that's definitely possible. Achilles historically has always been a strong god that can do a lot of work in multiple different roles. His aspect and the new armor off abilities, being able to like shred prots and stuff like that, is going to be pretty insane for jungle, and I think in solo he'll find a good fit as well. Probably not going to be support viable or mid viable or anything silly, but I think in solo and jungle this god's going to make a really big impact. Executes are super good right now as well for the late game, and I think he could probably make some good use of a lot of the active items as well. Will be really good with the hybrid builds in jungle. He procs Stone and Binding on his one. He can build a Swarm Binding and then stack that with his 20 flat shred that he has, which is now more than Humbats had, and that was a lot of the reason why Humbats was so strong. So I do think he's going to be really good. There's potential for him to be an S tier broken god in my opinion, I won't lie, but I think for now we'll just leave him in A because we haven't really been able to play with him too much yet. Agni I think I'll throw to the B tier. He is a pretty quintessential balanced mid laner in my opinion. B is kind of like the balanced tier, I would say. I'd say slightly above average for mid laners. There are definitely a lot of other mid laners that are worse than Agni, but there's also quite a few that are better in my opinion. However, I also do think Agni's going to get a bit better in OB3, but mainly because intelligence items are getting buffed across the board, which is obviously helpful for all these intelligence-based mids, but Reaver specifically I think is going to be really good. They've changed it to max health damage, and it now scales off of your int instead of current health damage. And Agni is one of the best users of Reaver in the entire game. Your triple bomb plus a stun, that's 4 procs of Reaver already, and then you might even get your 2 on them, you might get your dash on them. He's really good at abusing Reaver, and I think Reaver's going to be really strong, so that's why I think Agni is going to be one of the better mid laners. I don't think I would quite put him in the A tier, but it's definitely close. I think Agni's going to be good next patch. Amaterasu, I think I'll throw to maybe C tier. C or D, to be honest. She's not great right now, but she is getting some buffs in the newest patch, adding a lot of intelligence scaling to the damage mitigation on her mirror, and also just buffing her up in general. So I think Alma's going to be a little better on this patch, and honestly I don't think she was that terrible before. She was definitely playable. I think she was viable in the jungle with a bit of a bruiser build, her silence procs binding and stuff like that, so I think she's kind of viable there. And you can build a lot of on-hit damage with like Kin Size and Bragi's Harp and stuff like that. And in solo, I think she's pretty okay as well. She just kind of loses a lot of pressure in the solo lane to a lot of matchups, which kind of sucks because pressure is really important right now to secure all of the neutral farm that's available in solo lane. But yeah, I think Alma's going to have a little bit of potential in the new patch. She's not going to be great or anything, I don't think, but the buffs that are coming to her are pretty nice. Anhur also got some buffs. I think I'll throw Anhur to like... I don't know, C or B. It's kind of hard with a lot of these ADCs because, like, there's just no real reason to play any other ADC than Jing, ullr, or Medusa right now. But I think Anhur is pretty fine. I think he's one of the better lower tier ADCs in my opinion. It's just whether I'm going to put him in C or B tier. He is getting a few buffs in the next patch as well, but I think I'll throw him in C for now. I don't think he's going to be, like, super strong or anything, but I think he is one of the better lower tier ADCs that aren't ullr, Medusa, or Jing. Anubis, I think I'll throw to B as well, actually. I think Anubis is quite good right now, especially in like a low coordination, lower end ranked and casual games. I think Anubis can absolutely stomp out. And even in higher end, if you have a good communication, if you have like, a 5 stack in casuals, or you got like, 2 or 3 stack in ranked or something like that, you can really just burn objectives with Anubis. So it does an absolute crap ton of damage. And obviously the burst that they added to it in Smite 2 makes it a little bit better for securing kills and fights as well. Lifesteal still kind of sucks, which is the main issue why Anubis isn't like super good. If there was a lot of really good intelligence lifesteal items, he would be a lot better, but Soul Gem's kind of the only one that's good. Bloodbound Bug did get a buff, I think, this patch as well, which maybe could be nice for Anubis, keeping him alive with the shields. Jade Scepter also got a buff, which can be nice for keeping him safe. I think in general, Anubis is absolutely playable right now. I'd say he's a pretty average mid laner. He's worse than Agni in my opinion. Maybe we'll order these tiers at the end, left to right. But at the moment, I'm not ordering them. We'll do that at the end. But I do think Anubis is a little worse than Agni, but I think he's absolutely still viable. I wouldn't play him in solo or anything like that. I don't think he has too much value there. But as a mid laner, I think you can definitely find some value in him. Aphrodite, straight to the S tier. She didn't get any nerfs this patch. Her item builds are still incredible in terms of like a lot of support active items. Screeching Gargoyle got nerfed, but honestly, Afro wasn't even one of the better users of Screeching Gargoyle in the first place. And yeah, this god's just still fundamentally kind of breaks the game from the support role. You can just link to one of your carries, your mid laner, your ADC, even your jungler, and just keep them alive and just run through entire team fights. Her ultimate, obviously, insanely valuable in Smite 2. It speeds an Aegis on like a 90-second cooldown for 2 people when, you know, there's only a 1 relic system and the relics are on long cooldowns and stuff like that. Afro is just invaluable in that kind of a meta. Aries, I think I'll throw to D. I still don't believe in Aries, to be honest. Maybe he could be C tier. We'll see how the list develops. Maybe I'll bump him up or something like that. But I'm still not a huge believer in Aries, despite the aspect being quite good. I think they need to do something with his ultimate. You know, a Talisman of Purification is already enough of a blow. It doesn't also need to be countered by like a Hunbats or just pressing 2 or like a Loki just pressing 3. It should stun and then pull, in my opinion. Like stun, pull, stun or something like that, but make it no DR. At the moment, his ultimate is just way too hard countered by a lot of the top meta picks. They either have displacement immunity or like everyone just buys team bees against this guy and his ultimate's kind of useless. I think his base kit is really strong and it can super snowball the early game. Maybe even a little bit of viability in solo lane with Mystical Mail getting buffed and his aspect being able to, you know, stun out key abilities like Bellona 2 and stuff like that in the lane. I do think there's potential with this god, and you could arguably maybe even put him in C tier, but I'm still not like a full Aries believer, I don't think. He just kind of has a useless ultimate in the late game. Athena, I think I'll throw to B tier, mostly as a jungler. I don't think she's a great support right now, but as a jungler with the aspect, or even a jungler without the aspect, I think she's actually really strong right now. Her burst damage is absolutely ridiculous. Reach's scaling in Smite 2 is like astronomically higher than it was in Smite 1. In Smite 1, it was just a regular basic attack with a little bit of bonus damage. In Smite 2, it scales at ridiculous amounts of strength in it. And so you can just kind of like dash in or blink in, you know, get a couple of reach autos off after your dash and your 3 and taunt and stuff like that. You can pretty much 100 to 0 carries with your base kit very easily, and she does a lot of damage. Bacchus is F tier, man. Like, I don't see any reason to realistically play Bacchus in the current meta. Yes, he has some kind of impactful CCs, you know, flop into burp or burp into flop, all that kind of stuff. His ultimate doesn't DR. Like, he's still Bacchus. He still has value. I don't think any of the gods in Smite 2 are completely unplayable and have no value right now. But if I were to pick some of the worst gods in the game, Bacchus will be among them, I think. His aspect is not really anything, to be honest. It's not going to make him viable in solo or jungle or anything. And in support, I think he's playable, but I don't think he's very good. I would honestly rather have an Aries over a Bacchus, I think. At least Aries brings that early pressure and lane dominance and can kind of snowball on people. Bacchus doesn't really even do that. Baron, I think I'll throw to the D tier. I don't think Baron's very good right now either. Hussar's Wings and Stampede have been nerfed a little bit, which does help Baron a bit. You know, those items just kind of hard countered as 3 a lot of the time because people could just immune the slow and then it would miss all of his abilities as follow-up. And also Baron just kind of got absolutely omega nerfed and gutted between like the regular nerfs that he got and also the fixing of the bug where he was making everyone do 20% less damage to everything if they had high hysteria. They fixed that and he kind of just like plummeted down the tier list because he'd already been nerfed so much. Like if that bug didn't exist, he would have been ass. The only thing that was keeping him in the meta really was that bug, and then they fixed that and he kind of just became terrible. I think he's still better than Bacchus probably. He can play support, he can play solo. I wouldn't really recommend him in mid, but to be honest, I wouldn't recommend him too much anyway. I don't think he's a particularly good god right now. Bellona, I think I'll throw to the B tier. I think Bellona's a decent solo laner and passable jungler as well. I think there's definitely some potential with this god. She does really well into the crit meta because when you're reflecting damage, you're not going to be reflecting stuff like kin size, Braggies, and Sunbeam Bow from like previous builds, but now that people are building crit more in the ADC role, you do reflect that crit damage very heavily. And she can just kind of sit on Jing Wei, block her basic attacks because it's kind of hard for her to shoot around Bellona because of her AoE basic attack. She's really good into Jing Wei. She's good in the laning phase in most matchups. She gets a lot of pressure. She can clear really effectively in the lane and also the side camps and stuff like that with Bludgeon. Like she just gets a lot of pressure. She gets things done. Her late game isn't as bad. You can build a bit of damage on her, go like kin size, maybe even a Braggie's Harp or something like that. Even Executioner, I've seen sometimes people going like Kin's Executioner and then tank items and just kind of like shredding in the late game with Bellona. I think she has a lot of potential. Cabrakan, this one might be wild, but I'm going to put Cabrakan to the B tier as well. I think Cabrakan is also really good, but this is mainly from the support role. Maybe from jungle as well. He is getting some buffs to his scalings, and he does do a lot of damage if you build him that way, because you can build him like full strength, which is what I recommend on Cabrakan. I've got a guide for him on my second channel if you're curious about like builds and rolls and stuff like that. I do recommend going basically full strength on him. I think the strength items are just kind of better right now, even with the intelligence buffs that are coming in OB3. I think that's still going to be the better way to build Cabrakan. And I think there's some potential out of jungle there. In solo, I don't think he's very good. I think his early pressure in solo is just awful. Your 3 doesn't even full clear the wave before you drain your your entire mana bar at level 1. And if you're not 3ing to full clear the wave, your clear is just absolute ass garbage. You can't clear his own blue buff. I guess he's okay at side camps because you can press 3 on them once you get a few levels online. But honestly, I don't think he's that viable of a solo laner. I think for solo lane, he's like D tier, but I think for support, he's like A tier, and for jungle, he's probably like B tier. So I think in general, Cabrakan is actually quite good right now. Mostly from support, but a little bit of jungle viability as well. Thanatos will throw to C tier alongside Anhur. I think he's one of these, you know, lower tier ADCs that aren't ullr, Medusa, or Jing but are still playable in my opinion. In terms of aspects, Thanatos, I think it's ass. I wouldn't really recommend it, but just a regular base cape range Thanatos from the ADC role. He can build a lot of the same stuff that like Anhur will build or Jing will build, and he can get away with it, and he does a decent amount in team fights with his ultimate. Chaac, I think, is B as well. Chaac is fine. Viability in the solo lane mainly, but you can also flex into jungle and mid with a bit more damage in his build, maybe even rocking the aspect. I think Chaac is okay right now. I wouldn't say he's anything like super crazy, but he can do a lot of damage from jungle and mid, and he can do a lot of tanking from solo lane as well. I think he's quite good. Danzaburo, I think we'll throw to... Is it time to graduate Danza from the F tier to the D tier? They did do some reworks with him recently where like his clones weren't doing the right things, and now they are doing the right things. Maybe he's a little bit better. I still haven't seen a lot of success for this guy, and I still don't really believe in him, but maybe we'll put him in the D tier. But we'll see as the list evolves. But yeah, for now, we'll leave Danza in D. I don't think he's very good at all. It's just a debate of whether he's in F tier or in D tier, really. You can rock the aspect, you can not rock the aspect. I think either way, he's kind of bad, and he pretty much only plays one role. I don't think he's that viable of a jungle or mid or anything. He's basically just an ADC, and he's just worse than like Anhur, Thanatos, and especially ullr, Medusa, Jingwei. Fenrir, I think we'll throw to the A tier. Fenrir is really good right now. Pretty much entirely as a jungler. I think he has some niche support viability, especially if you're like duo queuing with your ADC and you know kind of how to get the pressure in the laning phase and utilize like Brutalizer's early game damage and just snowball, get all the camps and stuff like that, and get ahead on support. Because in a head Fenrir, you know, if Fenrir's like even with your carries in levels throughout the earlier mid game, he can pretty much just solo them, which is very valuable from a support role. But I think that is a little bit more niche. He's mainly a jungler. You can go Bruiser build with like Stone of Binding. He procs that very easily on his one. You can also go a bit more damage if you want to. I think Fenrir is just really good right now. His ultimate, of course, incredibly valuable in an environment where less people are buying beads as well. Yeah, but I think I'll throw to the B tier. I think he was a little bit overrated on his initial launch. He did get a couple of nerfs as well, which definitely impacted him. He is still a really powerful defensive support, but that's the thing. He's a defensive support. He does have some potential for like surprisingly good wave clear in the duo lane just by using his one. You know, you can one through the entire wave and then jump and hit them with the jump damage, and it actually kind of clears lane fairly quickly. But I don't think he's viable anywhere but support. But in support, I think he definitely has some potential as one of those more defensive supports that, you know, can kind of do a little bit of a hybrid between like a traditional engaged support and an Aphrodite. You know, you can just like pocket one guy and just make sure he keeps him alive with the shield and stuff like that, but he could also do a lot of engaging for the fight as well with his ultimate and his two. Obviously, don't rock the aspect. I think the aspect is pretty useless on him. Losing that knockup is too valuable, but just regular base kit Geb in support, I think is really solid at the moment. Hades, I think I'll throw to A tier. Hades is, in my opinion, the best solo laner in the game. Maybe Achilles will steal that throne when he releases. It depends how strong Achilles is going to be in the solo lane. I think he's going to be a better jungler, Achilles, but he might still be just like so strong that he's definitely viable in the solo lane. But pre-Achilles, I think Hades was the strongest solo laner in the game, and he may remain that way. He does a lot of damage. His lane pressure is really good past about level 5 to 9. Once you can get your ultimate online, once you can get some points in your 3, this guy dominates the lane. It's just you got to play careful for those first few waves because you really can't clear too effectively. You also are kind of forced into going Conduit Gem. You would like Pendulum for the CDR late game, but you kind of forced into Conduit Gem for the laning phase. But if you go Conduit Gem, once you get like 2 or 3 points into your 3, you can clear the wave really effectively. And this guy's damage numbers are just off the charts. So you can just blow up whole fights by like blinking in, ulting, following them with the dash, or just pressing 3 and just blowing up whole teams. You just build full damage, you build Helm of Darkness, in my opinion, you build Polynomicon, you can just absolutely ruin people with this guy. He's one of the best, like, carry solo laners, in my opinion. He can power farm, he has sustain for it, so he can stay in the lane longer and power farm more. And yeah, once you get out of those first few levels, I think Hades is absolutely dominant in the lane. And then in team fights, he's actually one of the best team fighting solo laners in the game now, just because his ultimate change was so impactful. Hercules, I think I'll throw to the A tier, mainly as a jungler, actually. I think he's definitely viable in the solo lane, but I'd say he's maybe like a B tier solo laner, but in terms of jungle, he's like upper A tier in my opinion. You can maybe even argue he's S tier for being a jungler. I guess we're fine. Okay, put him on his tier list. I did give that a watch. I kind of agree with the general essence, but I don't think he's quite an S tier god. But yeah, in jungle, he's really strong. Does the bruiser build really well, can proc binding on his 1 and 2, super good with that. And if you're building full damage, your 3 is almost a little bit more valuable because you can press 3 before you go in, take 80% of your health and heal 40% of it back. I think Mantle of Discord will also be a really great item for him in the jungle as well, like as maybe one of your only defense items in the build, just because if you are going to get bursted down and you need a little bit of time to, you know, buy some time for your 3 proc to get through, Mantle of Discord can stun everyone around you CC immune, and then your 3 procs and you're back in business. The cooldown refund after you ult is kind of insane. You know, just do your full combo and then you ult, and then your full combo's back up in like 4 seconds if you have a lot of CDR, which is quite easy to come by in jungle builds. And his damage is just off the charts, especially considering he's still relatively tanky as well. You don't go the aspect, obviously. Herc aspect is kind of useless, but yeah, jungle Herc really, really strong right now. Solo lane Herc definitely viable in my opinion. Probably similar to like chaac and bellona in terms of solo Herc. Bats, I think I'll throw to the A tier. Obviously, before the nerfs, this guy was S tier, best god in the game, but I think the nerfs were pretty heavy-handed for him, and I think it is going to bring him down pretty substantially. The stun on his 2 is quite short now, at like 0.75 seconds with the aspect, so I don't know if you're still going to go aspect with full damage bats. My guess is probably not. Just because you only have 20% scaling on your 2 and the stun is, you know, quite significantly reduced in duration. Also, the cooldown on the 2 went up as well, which makes it less valuable. Like, he did get some pretty substantial nerfs. I think he's still going to be a really good god. That's why he's in the A tier. You know, I'm only making arguments here against him because I'm trying to justify not putting him in the S tier. But I think he's going to be about on level with these gods, to be honest. I don't think he's going to be one of the absolute uncontested best gods in the game anymore. The nerfs are pretty heavy-handed. I think he's still going to be a plenty viable jungler without the aspect. And then with the aspect, maybe if you're going more of a jungle bruiser build, you can go for the aspect, and you know, maybe he's still got some solo or support viability, but I don't really know, to be honest, with how much the aspect got nerfed. Izanami will throw into D tier alongside Danzaburo. I don't really believe in this god, to be honest. She has a very high win rate, but I think a lot of that is just due to like one specialist of the god. She's got a very low play rate, which could skew win rates pretty substantially. You know, it's only the really good Izanami players that are bothering to play her because she's not meta. And also, I think she kind of stomps lower end lobbies by just winning the lane really hard. And there is an argument for that. You know, she has really fast wave clear. You can pair her with an aggressive support and just invade everything. I think there are strategies you can do with Izanami to make her work. And honestly, having her in the same tier as Danzaburo kind of feels wrong. So maybe Izanami needs to go up or Danza needs to go down. I think I'll put Danza down because I don't think Izanami's as good as Anhur and Thanatos right now. But yeah, those two in the same tier felt kind of bad. I do think Izanami is better than Danzaburo, but not by like that much. Speaking of good ADCs though, Jing goes straight to the S tier. She did get some nerfs to like her 1 and her 2 and stuff like that, and I think they are pretty substantial, but I still think she's going to be one of the best gods in the game, man. She just does far too much damage. The crit builds are really good right now. This god gets to late game and just wins for free. Like, there's a little bit more opportunity now to punish her in the early game due to the nerfs to her 1 and stuff like that. But if you don't shut her out of the game in like the first 10 minutes, this god is going to get online and is going to ruin your whole team. This god just does way too much damage and is way too safe, very hard to gank and stuff like that. Khepri, I think I'll throw to the C tier. I think Khepri has some reason to be played in the support role. I think he's better than Aries, that's for sure, but definitely not as good as like some of the picks up here, like Geb and Cabrakan. There's a lot of executes running around right now, which doesn't help. You know, Sobek's very common in support. Thanatos is very common in jungle. Achilles is being added to the game, which kind of does hurt Khepri a little bit. Obviously, his ultimate is countered by executes. And I think he has some viability. You know, he actually has decent-ish lane pressure because you can 2 your own wave for the mitigation and hit their wave as well with the tick damage and then the spread tick damage as well afterwards. His wave clear is quite good. His god damage is decent as well with the aspect on because your 1 actually does quite a lot of damage with the aspect. I think you can make Khepri work, but I don't think he's like a top support or anything like that. Kukulkan, I'll throw to like D tier. I think Kukulkan is fine-ish. I think he's better than Bacchus and Danzaburo, but that's about it. I think he's probably about on a level with Baron. He can do a lot of damage if you can consistently hit your ult, you know, every single time, keep people in your 3 and stuff like that. He does have like good mid-wave clear and stuff like that. He's a very safe god. Jade Scepter probably is helpful for him as well. You know, you can knock people away. You can technically combo Jade Scepter into your ult, but it's very hard to do in a realistic game setting. And a lot of mid items did get buffed. I think his Reaver got buffed enormously, and Cuckoo is not really a Reaver user compared to something like Agni, who can proc it, you know, reliably from range multiple times. Cuckoo kind of goes all in. And overall, I just don't think he's that good of a god. I've also seen him played a little bit in solo lane, but I don't fully believe in that in terms of, you know, actually at a high level. Loki is probably a B tier jungler, in my opinion. I think Loki has fallen from grace a little bit. He's still a really strong god. He's still absolutely viable, but I don't think he's as good as Humbats and Fenrir and Hercules, which is why I think I have to put him a tier below them. He's not that much worse, though, and I think he's still a plenty good jungler. I think you can absolutely still get away with Loki. He's still really good in that regard. Medusa, I'm going to have a hot take and throw to B tier. I think with the nerfs that Medusa is getting, she is going to be by far the worst of the top 3 ADCs in the role. I think she's still going to be better than Anhur and Thanatos. I think she's still going to be a top 3 ADC, but I think Medusa is going to fall off substantially. I think she was already noticeably worse than ullr and Jingwei. And ullr escaped nerfs entirely, and Jingwei didn't get nerfed that much, and Medusa actually probably got nerfed more than Jingwei, to be honest, or about the same. And I think she was already kind of overrated, to be honest. She brings a lot of early pressure to the laning phase. Her 1 in the early game could just delete your entire health bar and stuff like that. She can, like, shut more late game ADCs like ullr and Jingwei out of the lane. There is value to that for sure, but I think late game she kind of struggles a little bit. Her ultimate can sometimes whiff, her dash can be blocked. And yeah, I think Medusa is a little overvalued at the moment on the current OB2 patch, and she's also getting nerfed on OB3, so I think she will fall down to the B tier for me. Neath, I'll throw to D, I think. I would say she's worse than Thanatos and Anhur in terms of like an aspect on the ADC build, and then she also has the ability nuke build, which I think has some value as well. There's multiple ways to play her, but overall, I don't think either of them are, like, particularly super strong at the moment. Nemesis goes to F tier. This god is kind of useless at the moment. Hussar's Wings is getting nerfed, so you could argue maybe she should go up to D tier. With Hussar's Wings going up to 3,700 gold, but, like, the item still exists. You know, even if you're going to pay 700 gold more to completely delete Nemesis from the game, you're still going to be able to completely delete Nemesis from the game. Like, she's entirely reliant on slows. If you are slow immune, she cannot stick to you. It's impossible. Maybe she could build Fatalis and stick to you, but then she's got to build an item with absolutely ass garbage base stats just to be able to stick to you. Whereas Hussar's Wings has incredible base stats, and you're just going to like generally get ahead in terms of like the overall power of your build if she's forced to do that. And Stampede is still strong as well. You know, you don't even necessarily need Hussar's Wings. You know, for your backliners or whatever that Nemesis might want to ult and get on, that support or solo or jungle can just build Stampede, and then she's kind of useless in that regard as well. She can do a decent amount of damage. The aspect is kind of cool. There's some argument to put her in D, in my opinion, but I think I'll leave her in F. Nuwa, I think I'll put to C. I think she's better than Cuckoo and Baron in terms of being a mid laner. Reaver getting buffed is definitely handy for her as well. You know, her ultimate is good for proccing that. And I think she has some viability. It's just a little bit unsafe. You know, if you can force her ult, it's on a long cooldown, and then you can just kind of like get on her. Maybe Jade Scepter could be useful for her in terms of keeping her safe. But overall, there's just better mid laners to play, like Agni, like Anubis, and some other ones that we'll talk about later. Odin, D tier probably. You could argue Odin's even F. I don't think there's really any reason to pick Odin at the moment. I think honestly the best way to play him is in jungle, to be honest. I don't think he's that good of a soul, and I think if you're gonna play Odin, play him in jungle. But like his ultimate has just gotten worse and worse over time as more and more gods have come into the game that can very easily get out of it, and he just doesn't really do a whole lot, to be honest. He can be stunned very easily out of his 3, you know. I don't still think there's that much value to ever playing Odin. You can even shield splitter his 2 if you want to. Shield splitter is getting buffed in the recent patch, so everyone with a shield gets a little bit nerfed, because shield splitter is going to be basically physical life binder in the new patch, and I think a lot of people are going to build it. Pele, I think I'll throw to C. Pele is a viable jungler in my opinion. I think she's probably on a similar level as like armor jungle in terms of viability. I think she's probably worse than like Cabrakan and Athena though, and Loki. I think she's fine. I think if Reaper gets properly fixed, she will get a little bit better as well. Reaper's currently bugged where sometimes the stacks don't apply. If Reaper gets fixed, she definitely becomes a little bit better, but just like overall, anti-heal just counters her so easily as well. Like Divine Ruin's getting buffed this patch. Brawlers is still one of the best like strength efficient items in the game for the cost, even though it comes with anti-heal. Ruinous Ankh is still an item that people buy a lot. You know, everyone's buying anti-heal right now to deal with other threats like Hades and Aphrodite and Hercules, and Pele just gets hit in the crossfire. Poseidon, I'll throw to C. Again, I think he's probably on a similar level to Nuwa. Like, he's playable. You can definitely make him work in mid. I guess he has a little bit of jungle and solo viability as well, but mostly a mid laner. And I think he's better than Baron and Cuckoo, probably about on the level of, like, Nuwa. Ra, I think I'll throw to B. Ra, I think the solo lane, like, aspect Ra 2 proc build is kind of dead at this point. I actually don't think it's very good. Yes, it wins the lane super hard once you get, like, a Shield of the Phoenix / Soul Gem online and you've got your sustain. But that's kind of all it does. Like, it wins the lane really hard in a lot of matchups, but, you know, not as hard as it used to because of all the nerfs that have come to Ra's 2. But then in late game teamfights, you're just kind of sad when you have a Ra. You know, you'd much rather have like a Hercules or a Hades or an Achilles or whatever, just or even a Cabrakan, just providing some disruption to the late game teamfights. Ra just doesn't really bring that. Can you snowball games out of the laning phase and just come out of lane 3 levels ahead and just blow everyone up and carry the game and be unkillable? Yes, absolutely. That's why I think it's still B tier. And then in terms of int-based mid lane Ra, I think it's also B tier. I think int-based mid lane Ra's got a lot of buffs. Int items are getting buffed as well in the new patch, and I think he's going to be a pretty damn solid mid lane. I think if anything, his mid lane is now better than his solo lane. But I would say his mid lane is about on par with something like Agni or Anubis. Maybe a little better, to be honest, but not enough to warrant going up to the A tier. Rama, I think is going to be strong. I think I'm going to throw Rama to the A tier. I think he is going to be competitive with the top 3 ADCs that we've all come to know and hate in ullr, Jingwei, and Medusa. I don't think he'll be as good as Jing. Probably won't be as good as ullr either, in my opinion, but he will be better than Medusa. I think regular Rama is just going to be a really good user of the builds, honestly, and I think Aspect Rama is going to have a lot of potential in terms of being just like a better version of Izanami. If you always have those Astral Arrows on, you're basically Izanami in the laning phase in terms of like being able to really easily clear the wave and clear camps and stuff like that. And so you can kind of power farm for that reason. He'll probably have a lot of early pressure just by being able to clear waves super efficiently with this one permanently active. Obviously, it's not permanent. You have to reload occasionally, but the reload animation is very short, as they showcase on the Titan talk. So I think overall, like, Rama is going to be really strong, both with and without the Aspect, to be honest. There'll probably end up being a better way of playing Rama. I think it's probably going to be the Aspect, but even if it's not, I think Rama's base kit is still going to be very competitive with a lot of the top ADCs, and he can build very similar to Jing way with like crit and stuff like that and just kind of shred people down. Sobek I'll throw to the B tier, I think. I think Sobek is a perfectly fine support at the moment. You could even make an argument for A tier, to be honest, but I think Gev and Sobek are on a similar level. They do different things, but Sobek support is just really fundamental right now. Like, if you have a Sobek support, you can pretty much just play it every game and be pretty happy with it. He's just got really good disruption. He's got the execute. He's got decent-ish lane pressure as well with the 3 being able to spread the damage. He's got anti-heal built into his kit, which is really useful against a lot of the top picks like Afro, Hades, Ra, that kind of stuff. And yeah, overall, Sobek is just fundamentally solid. You could also play him in the solo lane, in my opinion, as well. I'd say solo lane is like lower B tier and his support is upper B tier. He's definitely better in the support role, but I think he can have some viability in solo as well and can do really well into some matchups. Sol, I think I'll throw to A. I'm not going to lie, I think Sol's Aspect is going to be really strong. I don't think there's too much reason to play regular Sol. I think that's still probably pretty bad. But just based on the looks of the Aspect and the numbers that it provides to you, I think actually intelligence-based Sol is going to be really strong in the new patch. Again, take this with a grain of salt. We haven't actually seen it. I haven't even played with it yet. But just based on the numbers and based on what I've seen from other people playing Sol, it looks like she's going to be really strong. You know, maybe she becomes a mid laner. Maybe she stays as an ADC and you build like intelligence-based attack speed, but also have like really high ability damage in line with that. I don't know. But I think overall the Aspect's going to be really strong. My prediction is A tier. Susano, I'll throw in C. I think he's fine. I think he's he got some buffs recently. I think he's on a similar level to like Pele in terms of like he's a playable jungler. You can make him work, but I don't think he's anything super strong. Aladdin, I'll throw to A. I think Aladdin is still good after the nerfs, but definitely took him down quite a lot. Those are probably the single biggest nerf patch that we ever saw that hit Aladdin fairly recently. And he also got some other nerfs before that too. He's still Aladdin. He still kind of fundamentally breaks the game in how much like you know, time he can buy and immunity by just running on walls. His ultimate, obviously, you know, he can 1v1 basically any god in the game if he's ahead. He still has ridiculous damage, but I think overall the nerfs have brought him down a little bit. I think he's still a really strong god, that's why he's in A tier. Again, I'm just trying to justify not putting him in S tier. But overall, I think the nerfs were pretty impactful. I think he's still good, but I don't think he's like the best god in the game anymore. Cupid is an interesting one. He's kind of like in between B and C. I think I'll throw him to B. He's definitely worse than Medusa in my opinion, but he's definitely better than Anhur, Thanatos, the kind of ADCs that are down here. He's kind of in the middle, you know. I would put him on like the lower end of B or the higher end of C, depending on how you feel about Cupid, really. I think the Aspect has some potential, but generally just non-aspect Cupid ADC is what I'm talking about here. The Stars Wings getting nerfed definitely helped him out a lot as well, because that just kind of like hard counters his ult. You can't really hit anyone with the ult if they have a Stars Wings. But the Cripple is still valuable into a lot of top picks as well. You know, a lot of junglers, like Hercules, for example, really relies on movement. Fenrir, you can cancel out Brutalize and stuff like that. And I think he does have some potential in the role. I think he's worse than Medusa. He's not in like the top 3 ADCs. In fact, he won't even be in the top 4 ADCs now, because I think Rama's going to join them. But he's still an absolutely viable, solid pick. Hecate, I think I'll throw to the S tier. This god is nuts, man. This god is nuts. You could argue she should go to A tier, in my opinion, but like she was already the strongest mid laner in the game and one of the strongest gods in the game, in my opinion. And intelligence-based mid laner items are getting buffed while Hecate is not getting nerfed at all. She's not the best Reaver user in the world. She's not as good as like Agni or anything, but she probably will use Reaver quite well. And also they just buff stuff like Divine Ruin and Chronos Pendant and other items that she'll want to use. The starter items, Sands of Time and Conduit Gem also got buffs. And just in general, Hecate's builds are just going to get a little bit better on this patch, and she was already one of the best gods in the game, in my opinion. She does so much damage. She's more safe than you'd think if you can use her ultimate properly to keep yourself safe. The movement speed on her 3 and combined with Gem of Focus keeps her really safe as well. And I think even Jade Scepter could make their way into her build in the new patch. Jade Scepter has 120 intelligence on it now, which is more than competitive with other imp-based items and can keep you safe with that 60-second knockaway. So yeah, Hecate I think is really strong right now. She's probably not as strong as these two, but she's definitely in the S tier for me. Mordred, I think I'll throw to... I don't want to put Mordred, man. I love this guy, but he's not very good. I think it's either C or D tier. I think he's probably not quite as bad as the gods that I have down here, to be honest. I think I would throw him to the lower end of C tier with Mordred. Obviously, aspect on solo Mordred is all I'm talking about here. I don't think non-aspect Mordred has any viability. I don't think jungle Mordred has any viability either. But in solo, with the aspect on, you know, abusing stuff like Phoenix Shield and Glad Shield, you can get a lead from the laning phase and just stomp out the mid game. The issue with Mordred is if the game stalls out and goes longer than like 25 minutes, you're just kind of useless in late game team fights. He's one of those gods that just wins late and the big game super hard, and if you can't close out the game or get a big enough lead to where you can close out the game from that lead, he just kind of like suffers in the late game. He's kind of like Hades was in Smite 1, but obviously Hades late game is good in Smite 2 because of his ultimate change. Mulan, I think I'll throw to like D. You could argue Mulan's F tier, to be honest. Mulan is really not very good right now. I don't think she has any jungle viability particularly, and in solo lane, again, she can do really well throughout the mid game once she starts getting her abilities ranked up, and she can get a lot of pressure in lane. But similar to Mordred, she just does nothing late game. Like, she doesn't have enough impactful AoE CC to be that kind of a solo laner, and her damage is way too slow to get out to be that kind of a solo laner. You know, she's not really going to be doing any levels of impactful damage, because as soon as she goes in, tanks die so quickly in Smite 2 that, like, by the time you've cast your 2 and you're 1 on someone, you've died. Like, you've just died. Like, she can't really get her damage out, and she can't really get, like, big impactful CC either, other than maybe her ultimate. Can she win lane and snowball pretty hard, similar to Mordred? Yes, but I don't think she's very good right now. Thanatos, I think I'll throw to A. Thanatos is still a really good jungler, in my opinion. I think he'd be on the lower end of A. I think stuff like Hercules and Bats and Aladdin are definitely all better than Thanatos. But I'd say he's probably on a similar level to Fenrir. Fenrir might be a tad better, but they're on a similar level, in my opinion. I think Thanatos is still really good in the jungle. Aspect on generally, but I think there's also some merit that people aren't exploring to non-aspect Thanatos with a full damage build, especially if the Bruiser build gets nerfed a little bit. Currently, Binding and Swan haven't really been nerfed. Void Shield hasn't really been nerfed. It was even going to get buffed. So the Bruiser build is still really strong with Thanatos aspect. That's the best way in general. But I do think there's some viability to playing Thanatos without the aspect on and just going full damage from jungle, because that 5-second cooldown refund, you don't realize how powerful it is if you've been playing like regular aspect Thanatos. You don't know how much you've been missing that 5-second cooldown refund that you get on a kill. You can really snowball fights with that. Morrigan, I think, is A. Morrigan's really good right now, in my opinion, as a mid laner mainly, but you can even find some like fringe viability in other roles with her as well. I think she's solid. Mid items are getting buffed as well. You know, Reaver's getting buffed, some other items that she might want to use. And just in general, her ultimate is incredible in Smite 2. You know, it's on a relatively low cooldown. You can use people's relics and active items, so you can just, every time you like ult into the enemy jungler, you can blink, which is kind of crazy on like a, you know, 80-second cooldown or something with a lot of CDR. And yeah, overall, I think Mori is pretty strong right now. I'd probably put her on the lower end of A tier, in my opinion, but I think she is really good if you can play her. Thor, where does Thor go, dude? Maybe B? Definitely lower end of B, if anything, maybe upper end of C. He's definitely better than Susano and Pele down here, but he's probably not better than Loki up here, in my opinion. Maybe we'll put him on the lower end of B. I think Thor can have some viability for sure. You know, with less people going beads, you can sometimes just find people in 100 to 0 them with your ultimate if they can't react to it. But the thing is, Thor ult feels super reactable in Smite 2. I don't know what they did with it, but it feels like even if you catch an enemy off guard with it, the amount of time they get before that circle appears, they can just jump away super easily or dash away, and you end up missing the ult a lot of the time. I think he still has value. Semi-glove mobility is still good, but like if you were going to play Thor, just play Thanatos instead. Ullr, I think I'll throw to the A tier, upper end of A tier, in my opinion. I think Ullr is super good right now. He's not as good as Jing, but he's, you know, on the upper end of ADCs. His damage output is just ridiculous. You know, late game, even without any strength pots, really, you know, he's really good at abusing Heartseeker. He can just press axe on you, and if you don't beat it and you get hit, you just kind of die. Yeah, Ullr's super strong right now, absolutely. Vulcan, I think I'll throw to A as well. I think Vulcan's a pretty good mid laner right now. I honestly, I'm not on the hype train of like Vulcan solo and Vulcan support with the aspect and building tanky being viable. I don't think that actually does anything for you. I think it's actually as garbage. I don't even know why they're nerfing it. I guess people are playing it, but I don't think it's really like super strong. I think just mid lane int base Vulcan with, you know, maybe still the Sun for Protection turret mod thing. I think that might still be good. They did nerf that though, and obviously the mod that gives you increased intelligence scaling on Backfire and Magma Bomb in set 2, they buffed that to 20% scaling now, so you can just add 40% scaling plus some base damage to his kit. And a lot of intelligence-based mid lane items got buffed. You know, Divine Ruins got more intelligence, Reaver's got more intelligence and a more useful passive. So yeah, overall, I think Vulcan is still super strong in the mid lane at the moment. Not like the best mid laner in the game. I'd say he's about on par with like Morrigan, but not as good as Hecate. Yamoja, A tier as well. I think Yamoja's really good if you can play her from the support role. Doesn't really play any other roles, obviously. She can use Gem of Focus now, but honestly, I don't think you're probably going to be building that anyway in the support role, but she's just really strong. She uses a lot of the active items well. She does Yamoja things. You know, she can solo backliners if you're just spamming your one on them in the early and mid game. And yeah, she's just incredible. Yamoja's still doing Yamoja things. Ymir, I think I'll throw it to B tier. I think Ymir's fine. I think like Sobek, like Geb, Ymir is absolutely a viable support in my opinion. But there are better picks you can play. You know, Aphrodite, Yamulja, maybe even Fenrir if you're good with that. Sobek, Geb are probably both better than Ymir as well. Even Cabrakan, I think, does what Ymir does, but better in my opinion in terms of being that aggressive support that can lock people down. And finally, we have Zeus, which I think I'll throw to... It's either upper end of A tier or it's lower end of S tier. I think I'll put him in A tier. I don't think he quite compares to the gods that are up here, but intelligence-based mid lane Zeus got a ton of buffs this patch. They nerfed ADC Zeus, but they buffed intelligence mid Zeus and buffed his builds and buffed Reaver. Like, I think this guy's going to be nuts as an intelligence mid laner on the new patch. He's probably on the upper end of A tier, I would say. And I think he's probably going to be the second best mid laner after Hecate, depending on how Sol performs. Sol might end up being an insane mid laner with the aspect, but I think in general, Zeus is probably going to be your second best mid laner for the new patch. They buffed him an insane amount in terms of intelligence-based mid-Zeus, and they buffed his item pool as well, when he was already really good there, in my opinion. But yeah, there you go. That is your full Smite 2 OB3 tier list with the new gods included, Achilles and Rama. Rama's obviously not in the game right now. Achilles will only be in the game at the launch of OB3. But I thought I would include them regardless in terms of like my prediction on where I think they're going to land, which is good, but not super broken. And yeah, then you have Bacchus, Danza, and Dem down here that just don't really do anything. You've got Afro, Jing, and Hecate as your top gods. And yeah, what do you guys think? I hope this tier list was useful for you in terms of OB3. When the patch launches, you can kind of get a feel for what is going to be strong and what is going to be not so great. And yeah, I will catch you guys for another video later on. Have a great day, and peace out, you nerds.